Welcome tonight to our Four Horsemen Friday Night Magic stream. We got Modern going on tonight. We're just going to jump right into it. First of all, we have me, Ethan Rapking, in the booth, and also
me, Dennis Barcelou, here giving you good commentary for tonight.
We're going to just jump right into it. We got Wyatt, who is on Dredge, and we have Patrick, who is on Martyr Proc.
Should be an interesting matchup.
Should be. I don't think I've seen Martyr Proc ever played.
It's been a while at least. It's been a while.
Yeah, so it looks like they're ready, so we're going to go ahead and
get into it.
It looks like who's on the play here?
Wyatt's on the play.
Wyatt, do not play.
Playing his graveyard out in front like a real bro. A real Dredge bro.
Oh, I thought he was playing his lands out in front there for a second. I was about to go down there and yell at him.
Come on, Wyatt's not a savage like that. He may be a savage, but he's not quite that savage. Let's see if his shock down to 19 or 17. Yes, it is.
Starting off with the Neonate. That's a pretty classic start for Dredge.
You might say it's the best start for Dredge.
Probably the best start.
Faithless Looting's pretty good, but Neonate gets access to some pretty nutty starts.
You're not wrong, my friend. It looked like both players kept their opening 7 as well.
Should make for an interesting match.
So I believe Martyr Proc's main card is
Sarah Ascendant.
Not Sarah Ascendant. It's the
Martyr Sands, I believe.
Martyr Sands, where you sacrifice it and then you reveal your hand. What happened?
Ooh. We've got a Stinkweed Imp Dredge for 5 for Wyatt's turn.
I'm not sure what happened here.
And then dredging Dark Blast for the turn. It's a pretty good start for Wyatt. He's doing about everything that he wants to.
Dark Blast, and you want to get that off the table as soon as possible. Wow, it's a 1/1 at least.
Yeah, that is definitely a card that will run away with the game.
Yes.
Ooh,
hitting
Ghost Quarter.
Ghost Quarter. What is that he has? What land was that?
What
did he just Ghost Quarter there?
Looks like maybe City of Brass?
City of Brass. Okay.
That's what I'm guessing. Because he didn't put any counters on it, so it's not a Gemstone Cavern, for sure.
I believe that's what it is, yeah. The weird white-bordered City of Brass.
Kind of throws you off a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Let's see.
It looks like Patrick's stuck on one land. Oh, no, well, he just Ghost Quartered. I forgot that's what he just did.
You gotta remember those Ghost Quarters, my friend. It's very important. I do find it interesting that he was willing to Ghost Quarter the City of Brass rather than advancing his own mana.
Yeah. Typically, that's not really what you want to be doing, is putting stuff in the graveyard for Dredge. He's just going to be able to get those lands back with life from the limb at some point. Got another Sarah.
Yes, he will. Definitely seems like Patrick's not really doing too much.
Double Dark Amoeba.
That is about the best Dredge you could have hoped for.
What was that last card? Is that Scourge Devil?
Maybe. Might also be a... Looks like it's 1 mana, so it might be a foil Insolent Neonate.
Oh, those foil cards.
They make it a little bit difficult to see.
Yeah.
Ooh, and a path for
snapping that path off on that Prize Amalgam. I mean, that's probably one of the main targets you want to hit. Surprised he did that on his end step, though.
Yeah, that does seem a little... I guess it's just being mana efficient on Patrick's side. He doesn't want to leave that...
on his end step. Okay, that makes more sense.
He doesn't want to leave that 1 mana unused for the turn.
That looks like a Flagstones of Tarkir, or...
Trocare, I believe.
It's something like that.
It's a difficult word.
Just passing the turn.
Did
you get a look
Dredging.
at what was in Patrick's hand?
I saw another Path to Exile, but
Path
other
to
than
Exile.
that, it is unsure. Ooh, that's a Haunted Dead
Haunted Dead.
in Wyatt's graveyard now. That's pretty interesting. Interesting
Wyatt's
tech.
hat's in the way. Can't really see. It's always weird having those Narcomoebas stuck in your hand as a Dredge player. I believe Wyatt's
it is.
running one Steam Vents in his deck just to be able to kind of cast those prized amalgams and Narcomoebas that get stuck in his hand.
Yeah, between one Steam Vents and then having access to City of Brass and or Gemstone Caverns, or Gemstone Mine rather. That's about all you're gonna need.
Right.
Just to keep him from getting stranded in there. See, so he's flashing back Faithless Looting. First draw, dredging a Golgari Thug. Let's see what he does for the second draw. I imagine that Life for the Loam. Ooh, nope, second Thug. There's that Steam Vent you were talking about.
Got a Conflagrate in his graveyard. How many cards does he have in his hand?
I would venture to guess
he has a full
lot.
grip, I guess.
But he still needs to discard 2 from the Faithless Looting.
I believe so, yes. It's like
Stinkweed Imps.
Stinkweed Imps.
Double Stinkweed Imp. That's
attack with 2.
That's about the best thing you could hope for.
That is a Ranger of Eos. I believe he's going to go get some Soul Sisters here with that.
Imagine at least one of those would be a Martyr, considering it's the namesake for the deck.
Yes, Martyr Sands is one.
Now the question is, does he go double Martyr and just try to accelerate his life total, or does he get double Martyr?
Seems pretty good. Do you remember what the other Martyrs are from that set?
Oh man,
There was one for each color.
I remember that there's one for each color, but yeah, you never see them.
No, you don't. Martyr Sands is by far the most played.
And considering that Martyr of Sands is the most played and you rarely ever see it, that's saying something for the Martyrs.
Martyr Proc got quite a bit of play not long ago. Is this a Conflagrate?
Conflagrate for looks like 2, just the 2, 3, 4.
What is he? 5.
Conflag for 5.
So 1 there and 4. Okay. So the black one, Black Martyr, was Martyr of Bones. Reveal X black cards from your hand. Sacrifice Martyr of Bones. Remove up to X target cards in a single graveyard. So
those Narcomoebas really like getting in there.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do.
And then that Dakmor salvage you dredged earlier, getting back those Bloodghast. Got a couple of them in there. Bringing another Amalgam along for the ride. So
it looks like. Let's see here. How much life did?
He's down to 13.
He's down to 13. He'll probably be gaining. He'll probably block with Martyr of Sands and then activate the Martyr of Sands ability here.
I would imagine. He doesn't want to get below 10 because that makes those Bloodghast way too dangerous. Ooh, Wyatt taking a regular draw. That's interesting.
Quite rare for the Dredge player.
I think it's because he doesn't have any green sources.
That could be.
So
that could be.
Dredging life from the lump's not really appealing when you can't cast it.
Maybe that Ghost Quarter earlier in the game might have been a wise move for Patrick in the first place.
Yeah, hindsight definitely makes it look much, much better.
Correct.
And there's Wyatt swinging in with everything. As we would figure.
Activating the Martyr, revealing 4, so 12. He'll be gaining 12. So he's taking.
I think he's taking 6 and then gaining 12. So he'll.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. He's going up to 25.
And then one of the Bloodghast is getting pathed. So he's actually only taking 4. So he's down to 21 after damage. Man, and just with that, you can see the power of Martyr Sands, where you can really gain life in a hurry, especially when your entire deck is mono white.
Yes, indeed.
Ooh, Wyatt taking a normal draw for the first of his Faithless Lootings.
I think you are right. He's missing the green mana, and he's dredging the Stinkweed
this time.
Double prized amalgam. That
pretty
was
good.
Not
it's pretty
a bad
good.
One. Now I'm a little confused as to why. No, never mind.
I'm interested in the fact that he did take 1 normal draw. Didn't get a really clear look at what he got, but it looks like he picked up that other life from the loam that he just discarded.
I believe that's what he.
And it's
he's casting Stinkweed up. That is interesting.
Probably as a hedge against any Sarah Ascendant shenanigans.
Yes.
Because I feel like that card in this matchup could definitely get out of hand.
Playing the Martyr Proc. Or Martyr Sands.
Well, when your deck's called Martyr Proc, you better play the Martyrs.
Should be.
Let's see if he takes the normal draw or if he dredges this time.
Thinking about it.
Well, I don't believe he has any Bloodghasts in there. And I think might be 1... Okay, so there's a Bloodghast. And another Dakmor Salvage. So that's pretty good. Next turn he can dredge that. Or he could even dredge that now if he wants to flash back a Faithless Looting.
So he's going to gain
12.
12 here.
Whew.
Up to 32. 33.
Looks like they have him at flat 30.
Did we miss a...
Oh, he only gained 9.
Oh.
He only gained 9. 3 cards. So I guess the question is now, does he flashback Faithless Looting? No, he's just getting in the red zone.
Now, the issue I see here for Patrick, yes, he's gaining a lot of life, but he's not really advancing his board state to a point where he can actually start racing. Ooh, that is a Wrath of God.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Now, the only thing that's really good for Wyatt here is he does have that other Dakmor Salvage, so he can rebuild pretty quickly. Just a matter of getting back that Dakmor Salvage for a landfall trigger, and then he'll get all of those amalgams back.
He is dredging the Dakmor Salvage, of course, as you said, so he can get his board back. He'll be getting,
I think,
3.
I think 2 Bloodghasts and 3 amalgams,
yes.
if I'm keeping track correctly.
I think he might actually have a 3rd Bloodghast in there, but I could be wrong.
I think at this point he's just lamenting the fact that all of his potential green sources are in the graveyard.
Now, the concern I would see here for Wyatt is just milling himself out.
That definitely seems like it could be a possibility, but...
It depends on how much life Patrick is able to gain here just to kind of stall out and see if he can try and out-mill.
Was that a Gideon of the Trials?
I believe so. I believe he runs a couple of them in his deck.
Wyatt moving the graveyard off to the side, maybe indicating that dredging is no longer on the agenda for the night.
Exactly what I was saying. You can't be dredging too much. He's getting two Martyr Sands here.
I would imagine Wyatt probably wants to dredge at least once more just to get back that Dark Blast. Because Dark Blast clearing the way here for a swing, that'd be a swing for 13. That'd put Patrick in a really dangerous spot.
Well, he can gain... He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can gain up to 12 life next turn with one of those Martyr Sands and have a
Yeah,
blocker.
he can gain 12 with 1, and then the second one will gain an additional 9.
So that is 21.
That'd be pretty good.
That's quite a bit of life.
I'm actually surprised he didn't, that Wyatt didn't dredge that Dark Blast there. I figured he would want to clear the way and let all of his attackers actually get in there.
I wonder how many cards are left in his deck. There can't be too many. It looks like he's gotten to the point where his graveyard is taller than his actual deck is. Getting back... Now, what is that?
Is that Scourge Devil or Rally the Peasants?
It could be a Rally of the Peasants. I know...
Scourge Devil.
It's Scourge Devil?
Based on the fact that it is a creature. It has power and toughness. So that is a foil Scourge Devil. Gotta make it difficult for us.
Blocking 1. So Scourge Devil gives the team +1/+0 or +2/+0?
I believe it's +2/+0.
So he's down to 4.
Down all the way to 4. So now it'll be interesting to see. And then Unearth exiles the Scourge Devil. So that was Scourge Devil for sure. It'll be interesting to see if Patrick decides to go all in on life gain this turn, or if he just presents as many blockers as he can.
That is a Gideon. What else is in his hand? An Oblivion Ring?
Yeah, that looks like an Oblivion Ring.
What is right beside the Oblivion Ring?
I am not entirely sure.
So he will reveal 4 up to 12. So he'll be up to
16. Unfortunately for him, Wyatt has found his green mana, so that's interesting. I would have expected him to dredge life from the loam there, because I'm pretty sure he has at least one more Conflagrate in his graveyard.
Picked up his graveyard, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for us to see.
And then with the block and the gaining life after that,
It'll be up
Patrick
to
actually
18.
gains 2 more. But now you'd have to imagine he's running
Oblivion Ring.
pretty well on empty.
I cannot tell.
Is that a promo Oblivion Ring?
I don't believe they made a promo Oblivion Ring.
Whatever it is definitely an exile effect, which is pretty good for him right now, though.
Down to 14 here.
There's a Stinkweed Imp.
So this Gideon is probably going to, well,
I would imagine Gideon comes down and... Do you plus the Gideon on one of the...
just another day. Is that a Wrath of God or a Day of Judgment?
I believe it was a Day of Judgment. He
gonna
could
just pick up.
not have flung that at the table hard enough. And I believe this is an emblem proxy. Yes, that is a Gideon emblem proxy. He does not lose the game anymore.
Until Gideon is off the table, at least.
Yeah.
A Gideon.
I imagine this is where, if Wyatt saw a Conflagrate in there, I imagine he gets back a life from the loam.
I would believe so. Counting, he does not have many cards left in his deck.
This is getting to be some risky business. Deep in the tank on this one. Those top deck wrath effects have really done a good job of stalling this game out. Alright.
They definitely have. So he will... There is the Conflagrate.
Found a Conflagrate, and he also found another Bloodghast. So if he... I imagine he probably Conflagrates...
He's going to get this Gideon off the table.
The question is, does he keep a land to trigger Bloodghast?
I just think he's going to take out Gideon here. And he'll be able to get his Bloodghast back next turn. I think he can survive after one more Dredge effect. Thinking about playing something.
Was that
Didn't get a good look.
Was that
in to see.
another Goehring effect, maybe?
It might have been.
Oh.
That is. I'm not entirely sure what that is.
Woo. Well, it seems to have garnered a concession from Wyatt. We're
going to go to sideboarding here. I'm going to let Dennis talk a little bit about sideboarding. I need to go and get the drafters started. So I will be right back.
So it'll be interesting to see how much they sideboard for this game, because I know traditionally the Dredge decks don't particularly sideboard too much. There's a lot going on in the deck that you don't really want to mess with. So it'll be an interesting see. And we will work on that, having it listed under Cards Against Humanity. Just give us just a minute. As for the Martyr Proc deck, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what to expect out of that. It has been a long time since I've seen anybody play that deck. So we'll all be along for the ride on that one. Okay. Oh. Still sideboarding here. Looks like Patrick's already decided on what he wants to be doing. Wyatt's still a little in the tank. Like I said, the Dredge deck's a little difficult sideboard with that, because you're never quite sure how much you want to side out. There are a lot of tight numbers in there as far as figuring out what all you're running, and you want to make sure that you still have your critical number of dredgers, so you don't actually hurt your main game plan by over sideboarding. But it was actually a pretty long game one, considering that took about a little over 20 minutes. It'll be interesting to see if game 2 and or 3 get a little bit faster. We'll have to see how that goes.
And I am back. So, did you talk a little bit about sideboarding options that these two players might be bringing in?
Yeah, the Dredge deck, sideboarding for the Dredge deck is always difficult, because you don't want to hurt your primary game plan to bring in a lot of times they bring in removal, and for the most part they normally bring in like Ancient Grudges and maybe like Abrupt Decays, expecting to see Grafdigger's Cage and other graveyard hate.
Right.
Especially when you're against this mono white deck, you can imagine he probably has Rest in Pieces.
I would assume he's not interacting with his graveyard at all, so I would assume he'd have Rest in Peace or Grafdigger's Cage or something of the like.
Probably some number of both.
Probably.
Like, I would imagine maybe like a 2-1 split of Rest in Peace and Grafdigger's Cage, just as a hedge.
Looks like Wyatt's taking mulligan here.
Now, if you're Wyatt, do you think you aggressively mulligan to try to get to maybe an Abrupt Decay? Or are you content with just kind of just taking whatever you get and hoping you power through it?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I was updating the information. It seems like we were under Cards Against Humanity here.
Yeah, I already fixed it.
Oh, you already fixed it? Okay,
Yeah.
my bad.
But no. If you're piloting Dredge, do you mulligan aggressively, or do you kind of just try to take the fastest hand you can get and try to power through whatever hate they might be bringing from the other side of the table?
It depends. I think you have to mulligan somewhat aggressively, especially if you know that your opponent's going to be bringing in some sort of hate. And you know that your opponent's going to be bringing in some sort of hate, but Patrick's deck is definitely going to be bringing in hate because he is not interacting with his graveyard at all. So you have to probably mulligan down to maybe one Nature's Claim or something like that.
Either Nature's Claim or, normally they run at least one or two Abrupt Decays.
Right.
So I imagine that's actually the card that you want to see. Especially considering Wyatt's difficulties last game in getting hold of green mana.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine he also probably doesn't keep a hand that doesn't give him access to green. Oof. Picking up a Narcomoeba off the Faithless Looting's always a pain.
I think did he have this Narcomoeba in his hand to start with?
Yeah. Having a Narcomoeba in your opening hand in Dredge is basically like taking a mulligan as is.
I agree. Yes.
So Wyatt's more or less starting on 5, which is difficult.
It can be simultaneously the best card in your deck and the worst card in your deck for Dredge players. So immediately sacking that insolent Neonate, playing the Black Fleet's Clips, getting back the Blood Gas, playing another insolent Neonate. I believe he needs to find some sort of removal for this.
Yes.
For this Saracen, though.
He definitely needs to find removal and or a Dredger, because with all that drawing and discarding, he still has not found a Dredger.
He still does not have a Dredger, which is surprising. His hand is what? Narcomoeba and a City of Brass, I believe?
Yes, it is. And there goes the Narcomoeba.
Getting that out of your hand as quickly as possible.
Still no Dredgers for
I
Wyatt.
believe he picked up another Neonate.
That would be unfortunate.
Or a Conflagrate. It's a red card.
It is for sure a red card. Patrick's leaning way far back, so we can't even try to see what's in his hand. He's trying to keep the secret tech a secret.
Oh, this is not good for Wyatt.
Yeah, that Martyr normally does not spell good tidings.
Oh, I believe he kept a full grip too. I believe he has 6 cards in his hand. This getting back, flashing back the Faithless Looting, drawing 2. So you got to attack more salvage.
Yeah.
So he got a Dredger
and a mountain, which that is not. Seems like all he's been able to pick up today is land.
Yeah. Well, last game he was having trouble finding that green source. This time he has his green source, but it seems like all he's drawing now is land. And
there goes the green source.
Wyatt does not run a basic forest in his deck, does he?
Most of the Dredge decks do not run a basic forest.
I didn't believe they did.
I'm pretty sure they primarily run basic mountains and then the occasional basic swamp.
Now, I'm surprised that Patrick must not have too many white cards in his hand because he's not sacrificing that Martyr Proc to make that, or that Martyr Sands to make. It's 18-18.
Is that 18-18?
Yes, I believe so. It might be 18-16 actually.
Question is who has the 16.
I'm gonna run down. And,
oh no, that's 18-18.
Okay,
we're good. We're good.
Now, I'm surprised that he's not sacrificing that Martyr Sands to make his life total over 30.
I imagine he probably wants to do exactly what he's doing right now. Do some block shenanigans with the Martyr.
And let's see how many white cards he has in his hand. Just 1. Wow.
That's interesting that he only has the 1. Actually, I might have been right the first time. I think it was 16-16.
Well, this is...
It's now a 16-19.
Okay. Get
Get that corrected real quick. It's interesting that he has a hand with only the one white card.
I'm surprised. I'm wondering what else he has in his hand now.
The real question is does he not have more white cards in hand, or does he just not want to reveal them?
It looks like he has a bunch of lands. I see a plains, and I think I see another flagstones of Trocaire. We'll just call it flagstones from now on.
Flagstone seems fine. Ooh.
Conflagrating.
The hard cast Conflagrate. Some might say Wyatt's trying to do this on hard mode.
That, I believe, is the land that allows you to put things from your graveyard onto the bottom of your deck.
I believe you are correct.
I don't remember what it's called.
Works really well with Ranger Vios, though.
It works really well with Squadron Hawk as well.
That is also true. But we haven't seen Squadron Hawks yet out of him.
I believe he's running them, though. I believe I've seen him before.
I'm also interested that we haven't seen any of the normal Soul Sisters.
I would agree. Well, he's not playing the Soul Sisters plan of playing a bunch of little creatures like Lingering Souls or anything like that. So he's not really getting the value out of all that. So
that's true.
It just seems like he's gaining a lot of life in large chunks rather than the small incremental life gain that you get off the Soul Sisters.
Now, I do find it interesting that he was willing to keep, because he kept his 7.
Mm-hmm.
So either he kept a decent 7 and then has drawn nothing but land, or maybe he might have wanted to consider a mulligan to 6, because it just doesn't seem like he's doing a whole lot. And whatever sideboard hate that he has, hasn't seen it. So I'm interested to see what and if he brought in for sideboard hate, because you assume that there's something there, but I don't know if you keep a 7 that doesn't have it.
Well, he must have thought that he'd be able to at least try and find something. Ooh. He might have something in his hand that we just don't know about.
It looks like 3 lands and maybe a something.
Now, the issue that I see with this Martyr deck is the card advantage is definitely very weak. So being able to find that hate is going to be difficult for him.
Yeah. Basically seems like his card advantage boils down to creature tutors.
Yes.
Like Ranger Vios and whatever number of Squadron Hawks he's running. Wyatt showing the Dakmor salvage.
That he just dredged. Well, he just dredged the
Stinkweed Imp. So he, Patrick must have already known about the Dakmor salvage. I think that was the dredge of the previous turn.
Yes.
I imagine it's pretty appealing to get that Dakmor salvage down now, considering that there's a Bloodghast and a couple amalgams in the graveyard. Just try to get as much power on the board as you can before...
How many amalgams does he have? He has...
I know...
At least one. I see one.
One for sure. The previous amalgam was exiled.
No, off the path to exile. That's correct.
Yes. And there's a hit.
Taking 2.
I think we missed the 2 from last turn as well.
So he's down to 15?
Down to 15. It's providing us with some interesting games, but I'm not sure how much of it is the gameplay or just not drawing.
No, what is that?
That is... Ooh. That is the card that Wyatt conceded to last round.
Splendid Reclamation, I believe. Not Splendid.
One of the reclamations?
Something like that. I went down and asked Patrick...
Seems like any effect that gets back multiple 1-drops for this deck seems like it'd be a pretty good choice. I also imagine that Martyr is probably not long for this world. It's probably going to be on chump and sack duty, unless Patrick is just on stone nothing. There's definitely at least one castable white card in there. I think it's a plains and a card. Ooh, yep. Wyatt needs to make sure he taps his lands correctly. Okay, so there is a cast Life from the Loam.
I believe we're going to see some Conflagrates here.
I imagine that's probably the smartest move on his part. Kind of clear the way pre-combat, and not let there be any shenanigans.
Right. He has 2 Conflagrates in the yard, so
I do find it interesting that he elected to play that land. Is he going to flash back a Faithless Looting?
He might be. That's what.
Now this I find interesting. I would have imagined that he probably getting back the Dark Blast makes sense.
He still has the Dakmor Salvage up as well, so he will be able to do quite a bit. Oh no.
Is he gonna
looking for
pitch a
some
land and a Dredger?
Surprised he had a Stinkweed Imp in his hand. I'm surprised that he's not.
He might want to keep the Stinkweed Imp in his hand so that he can cast it just in case Patrick randomly gains a large chunk of life. Got to make sure you have something capable of blocking the Sarah Ascendant. That is definitely a card that can run away with this game in a hurry.
It is a scary card. Absolutely scary card.
Wyatt showing Patrick that he knows 2 cards in hand. I imagine if he was paying attention, probably knows a 3rd or a 4th just from Dredge. Ooh, are we going to see a double block coming through? Looks like he's thinking about it. Oh, just blocking the 2 Bloodghast. This is what makes it interesting that he didn't, or that he played the mountain earlier.
He's going to Dark Blast the Sarah Ascendant, I believe.
In response to Patrick retrieving the Path. Or does he Dark Blast the Martyr since he no longer has mana up to activate it? That makes sense. This does still interest me as to why Wyatt played his land pre-combat. I don't know. Part of me likes the idea of holding your land to second main, especially if you're swinging with multiple Bloodghast.
Here comes the Hawks.
Hawking it up, as they would say.
Caw. Getting 1, 2, probably going to get the full 4 here.
I would imagine.
Bringing all.
I think the biggest benefit of this at this point is just shuffling that Path back into his library. Give him a chance of actually drawing it.
Going to get rid of that. Now he's going to be able to. Now what's great about this is that he's basically going to have infinite blockers for these Bloodghast, because he does have that card that allows him to put Squadron Hawks on the bottom of his graveyard. So he'll be able to block this Bloodghast,
and then just chain Squadron Hawks to the bottom of his library, and then every time he casts a new one,
he'll go get
he goes and gets his buddy.
He's dredging. I did not see what dredger he
looks like a Life from the Loam.
Yeah, so dredge 3.
With the Conflagrates already in his graveyard, Life from the Loam's probably the best thing he could be dredging. Yeah, you can see Wyatt sees what he's doing now. I think he's
going to Conflagrate this Squadron Hawk.
Yeah, this is the Conflagrate turn. This is clear the way, dump some stuff, keep 1 land to trigger the Bloodghast that's in there, get back an Amalgam.
He's pitching 4, so 3 and 1.
He's down to 10. Which gives that Bloodghast haste. That's
8.
Nice 6. The second Bloodghast has haste because he was already down to 10.
Yes.
That's a nice little bit of clean play from Wyatt.
He has a second Conflagrate in his yard, right? So he can just win next turn, right?
Patrick just brought back that Saracen and that Martyr again, and now he's gonna get a Martyr active with 3 Squadron Hawks.
That
9 life. That's a
not
pretty good
good.
cushion.
Not good for Wyatt.
Wyatt will probably have to get back this life from the loam.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and he just pointed at the amalgam. He missed that amalgam trigger from the previous turn. That might come to bite him. Oh, never mind. He got another bloodghast.
Another
Ooh,
amalgam.
and a second amalgam. That's pretty tasty.
So I think Wyatt's going to probably try and set up, try and kill him next turn. Even through this
This martyr.
this martyr.
Yeah, I imagine conflagrate for 2, probably sending 1 at each the ascendant and the martyr. At the very least, force him to use the martyr now, and then keeping 1 land so he can trigger the additional bloodghasts and get those amalgams back. He just needs to make sure he doesn't forget the trigger this time.
He's up to 15, it looks like.
Yeah, he is up to 15, and he did keep that City of Brass so that he can. The question is, he should play it for turn, I would imagine.
Well, it gets back.
It would pull 8 power out of the graveyard,
Mm-hmm.
which right now would be pretty big.
Attacking for 4, that puts him at 11.
And then there's the land, bringing back the bloodghast.
And all does price. There, he
Yay.
does not forget those triggers this time. This is very important for him to get those triggers this time. Now, he's going to Squadron Hawk it up right now.
Probably get back. Yeah, he's going to put the 1 Squadron Hawk back on the bottom of his library first. No, he is just
Put
throwing hawks out.
He's gonna chain these together.
I'm interested that he did this after casting 2 of the Squadron Hawks and not before. The only thing that makes me think of is since he's planning on chumping, he wants to get multiple Squadron Hawks at the same time. So he can chump, put a second one on the bottom of his library, and then get 2 Squadron Hawks out of his library on 1 cast, which is probably what he's thinking.
Now we're at an interesting point in the game where basically they all can.
Woo, there's the Scourge Devil.
There it is.
Is that enough,
I
though?
don't believe so.
So you imagine he probably blocks the 2 amalgams.
So
he's taking
3, 6, 9.
and it's
He'll probably be taking 9 here. And there's a Path to Exile. Okay.
so he's still taking 9.
Still taking 9.
Down to 2. And then at end of turn, the Scourge Devil goes away. So Wyatt at this point is just looking for another Conflagrate or really just another combat, and he's got it.
Well, he'll be able to. Remember, Patrick's going to be getting some Squadron Hawks here again.
But can he cast? How many can he cast?
I believe he can cast 2 or 3.
So he'll
So maybe he
two
won't.
mana ties up, putting 1 on the bottom, and then he's got 5 mana available, so he'll be able to cast 2, which still puts him dead to the board.
But there's a lot of life gaining in this deck, so see what he draws here.
Maybe he pulls
Then get a good
another
look at it.
timely Wrath effect.
Well, even a Wrath effect would not do it because Wyatt would just be able to get back the
Bloodghast with a land.
Again.
That is correct.
So we're going to game 3 here. Do any of these players switch up? I did not see any hate from either of those players.
I imagine whatever hate Patrick has, at the very least, he probably aggressively mulligans this game. He'll be on the play, so he'll get a slight advantage if he can manage to get like a Rested Piece down on turn 2, or even a Grafdigger's Cage would be great there. The question is, I don't think the question is as much, do they sideboard more? I think maybe small adjustments based on play draw, but I think for the most part, it's just going to come down to how aggressively do these 2 players mulligan for game 3, considering what just happened right there.
I'm going to go down and let these players know that they only have about 5 more minutes left, just to let them know, because it's hard for them to see the clock from where they're sitting. So I'll be right back.
So I noticed Patrick made a couple swaps. It didn't look like he did very much. So interested to see whether or not maybe he added more hate cards, or maybe bringing in the hate cards at all. Maybe he just didn't bring in hate cards for game 2, which would be an interesting line of play. Looks like Wyatt, for the sake of time, looks like they both, for the sake of time, neglected to cut. We will see if that works for either of them. And woo! Off to the races we go. Turn 1 Sarah Ascendant. Let's see what Wyatt has for a follow-up. Black Cliffs in 2, Insolent Neonate. Both starting off exactly where they want to be. Setting up to be an exciting game 3. There's the Ghost Quarter and Sarah Ascendant. Blocked by the Neonate. Obviously sacked before damaged. This is exactly the start that Wyatt wants to be off onto. Let's see. Stinkweed Imp, Conflagrate, Bloodghast, a land, and a Faithless Looting. That is a pretty fantastic dredge. Has another dredger, has a target to bring back already. Ooh, and there is a Martyr for Patrick. So I'd say both players right now doing exactly what they want to do to start this game 3. Okay, Wyatt is dredging the other Stinkweed up for the start of his turn.
And I'm back. So this seems like a strong start for Patrick.
Honestly, they're both doing exactly what they want to. Question is, did Wyatt miss... Oh, Patrick is reminding him of the Narcomoeba trigger. Looks like...
Good on Patrick.
Looks like Wyatt's a little bit rustier with Dredge than he would let on.
Now Wyatt just rebuilt Dredge, so I just got him his 3 last amalgams that he needed to play this deck again. So yes, he's probably a little rusty playing this deck.
Well, we'll have to give him a hard time for those missed triggers later. Well, there's now 2 Bloodghast in the graveyard. Looks like those are coming back. Critically, Wyatt also hit 2 Conflagrates already. So if Patrick can manage to... Ooh, and there's... should be... Yep, 1 damage from the City of Brass, getting back a bunch of land. It'll be interesting to see if Patrick manages to find the hate cards this time. Because a Rest in Peace right now would be, as they say, pretty decent.
I see a Wrath of God in his hand.
I do see a Wrath of God.
That is a Field of Ruin right there.
Ooh. Looks like he does have a second white source in hand.
I see a Gideon as well. Now, he can play Gideon here if he wants to, but I don't think he wants to...
Ooh.
That is a good play on...
Gets him a second white source, turns off the City of Brass, which is very flexible for Wyatt's deck.
His Martyr Sands as well.
It does also turn on the Martyr Sands.
Now,
I wonder, if Patrick goes to activate the Martyr, does he reveal the Wrath? Or does he withhold that information?
No, I believe he does.
Just goes for maximum life gain?
Yeah, you want your Sarah Ascendant to be as big as possible.
Now, it looks like... Let's see, how many...
Okay.
Oh, not activating...
That is an
not
interesting
activating
play
the Martyr.
On Patrick's end.
I would have expected the Martyr active there. Try to power up the Ascendant rather than just pathing the lowly Narcomoeba. I guess this just shows how much he actually values the flyers in the matchup. I do think he runs the risk, though, of not being able to activate his Martyr in general, because that looked like Life from the Loam coming back, and if Wyatt just casts this Conflagrate, clears the board out, it looks like it's not a good position for Patrick.
No, it does not. It looks like what he is going to do.
That is 3 cards. 4,
5. So
3 to Patrick, clears the board, clears the way for these Bloodghast to get in there.
He's not able to sacrifice his Martyr of Sands either.
That is a absolutely brutal turn of events for Patrick.
Now, Patrick has those Wrath of Gods in his hand, though.
I guess the real question is the Wrath of God good enough here? Because all Wyatt needs is 1 land, and at this point, all it's going to do is it's going to slow him down for a turn.
And that might be all Patrick needs to at least put this into a tie. Now, they're going to go to time. I'm going to go let them know that they are at time now, so they have 5 extra turns.
So as soon as Ethan gets down there, active player will be turned 0. So Wyatt should be turned 0. Or active player. So he should be turned 0, which means Patrick would be turned 1. Wyatt going into kind of turbo here, trying to make sure he gets this win in here in time. Plays the City of Brass, gets back some Bloodghast, conflagrates, deals some damage. It's a very productive turn for Wyatt, even getting back that prized amalgam. Patrick's really, really not in a good spot. Even if he makes a Gideon emblem, doesn't even have time for the emblem. He's just gonna plus it on the prized amalgam. So that amalgam can't deal damage this turn. See if Wyatt has enough to end this. It pretty much just comes down to, there we go. That is a Scourge Devil, and that is game for Wyatt. Wow, that was a quick finish there. Just shows you how quickly the Dredge deck can kind of build out of nothing and just apply pressure.
That was quite impressive, what Wyatt did. So, 2-1.
Yeah. So 2-1 for Wyatt.
Okay. We will be right back. We're going to go get you guys another match here in a few minutes. I believe everybody is done downstairs. So give us a few minutes and we will be right back for more Magic.